All right, so for our latest project, we're going to be taking a look at this very cool old Technics shaft style AM/FM cassette car stereo. This is model CQ-R720EU. This is another submission from Daniel in North Carolina. He has a huge eBay store under the name Classic Systems, and he has what I would consider to be one of the largest collections of vintage car audio, probably in the United States. Pretty much any brand you can think of, this guy has either had it or currently has it. So if you're looking for something for your vintage ride, check him out for sure. He sent me a picture of this when he first got it, and I was like, I'm not sure what's wrong with this. I definitely want you to send it to me. I'd definitely love to do a video on it. He says it does work, but this model does have switchable illumination, but it won't switch between the amber and green setting. But otherwise, according to him, everything is working. He went ahead and sent along the 9-band passive equalizer and the 2 Technics mini amps to go with it, so we can hook it all up as a complete system. So not sure what's going on, but we will open it up and find out. And as always, we'll come in and have a look at the controls and features of the unit, as well as the connections they provided in the back. As for our intro music this time, we're going to go back to 1990 for the Lynch Mob record, Wicked Sensation. Of course, this would be George Lynch's debut solo album after leaving Dokken, and it did not disappoint on any level. Basically about an hour of George just going through one amazing solo after another. So let's check out a little bit of my favorite track from this called For a Million Years, and then we'll get started on the Technics. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the stack that he sent along with the radio, starting off with the 9-band passive equalizer. And it is totally passive, no power lines on the back. It's powered off the DIN connection coming from the radio. Of course, again, 9 bands, dual amp fader on it, so you can fade between the 2 outputs. couple of switches here to select whether or not you want the EQ effect on one or both amps. And pretty simply stated, I would say. Official model number CY-EQ-9EU. Again, the EU portion, I believe, referring to the European market where this was sold. The amplifiers themselves, very straightforward. I believe he said these are around 25 watts per channel. The official model number of those are CYM125EU. And of course, these accept the input, or the output coming from the equalizer or the radio if you didn't have the EQ, and then it has the built-in speaker lines for you, as well as the power and remote turn-on that you'll need. Both amplifiers are exactly the same. Not sure if there's any illumination in the front of these or not. We'll find all that out a little later in the video. He says all of this stuff does work, but we will look it over just to make sure. And then the radio. What I was most excited about the radio is the logic controlled tape deck in this. So I'm real curious if this has the same mechanism as that higher end Panasonic that he sent that had the touch panel on the front. I'm wondering if we have the same mechanism in this radio as that radio had. But otherwise, they give you a few controls here. Obviously, volume and power built together with bass on the back end of that, push for the balance, and then pull for the treble. And then there is the illumination that switches it between amber and green. He's saying that it works in one but not the other, but I don't remember which one he said it works in. Then of course you've got a few controls here, clock, AM, FM, and then the presets, 5 presets there, as well as those doubling as the tape controls for rewind, stop, fast forward, and then down below for metal tape capability and the Dolby noise reduction. The one over to the right is scan and TPS, which I would assume is the music search on this. The knob on the right for the tuner and the back sides for the fader, and then pushing for the seek and the program. Looks to be in very good shape. He's got a brand new wiring harness here. I don't know if he said it didn't come with one. He had one that he put with it. We're going to assume that's all compatible with the radio. And then, of course, the one DIN connection coming out, which will also power up the equalizer. Then there is a pretty beefy heat sink on the back of this, so it probably does have some pretty good internal power, or good power for a radio from back then. It's a very, very cool looking old shaft style radio, and I believe that this trim plate is also illuminated, although he did say that had a little bit of damage on the back. So I believe there's slots in the nose piece that illuminates pieces in the face that will backlit probably, or backlight that, telling you what the controls are. So very cool. I think the first thing we're going to do, we're not going to worry about the amps or the EQ at the moment. We're going to focus on the radio. So let me go ahead and get the bench cleared off, and we're going to go ahead and get this radio hooked up and just confirm radio and tape functions work, and then we'll move on to the problem at hand. All right, as we pick back up on this one, went ahead and got the speakers hooked up and got a power supply involved over there, and pretty much what he said is what I'm seeing here. We do have a working radio and tape. I even saved a couple stations in the preset. That is all working. And we'll put the tape in. Could just be me, but it sounds a little fast, but we'll look into that a little bit later. But also exactly what he said. When you shift from orange, which should go to green, we get nothing. Still have the display there, of course, but just no backlight. So wouldn't say there's anything wrong with the switch. It's got to be something with the lighting behind the nose piece here. So I think what we want to do, let's go ahead and get the trim piece off, the knobs off, the top off, and then we can get the front face piece off here and see what kind of lighting we got behind there. But otherwise, the radio does work, just like you said. All right, I'll go ahead and get it apart, and we'll pick back up in just a minute here. All right, so as I bring it back in here, went ahead and got the nose piece off. Comes off fairly easily, just a couple of screws in the top lid here on the left and the right side, and then just clips, basically just tabs that release, and the front comes right off. Taking a look at the mechanism in this, it is definitely not the one that was in the Panasonic radio we worked on. No speed control here on the motor. It is quite a beefy mechanism. I think it's actually a little bigger than the one that may have been in that Panasonic. But just taking a look at the front here, and I might be wrong, but I'm only seeing 2 lamps in this. And let's plug it in or hook it back up, and we'll be able to get a little better idea of what's going on. We'll turn the volume down. So if we switch it back to the orange, you can see there's a green lamp right in front. And then, of course, switching it over produces nothing for the green. And you can see there's place right there for 2 bulbs. So I think what we want to do is leave it on the non-working lamp and do a voltage check there just to see if we have any voltage. So tell you what, let me set the camera up overhead, and I'll bring you back and we'll take a look at the voltage here. All right, as we carry on here, I went ahead and got the radio kind of flipped upside down so we can get to the bottom of where the circuit board is. And to get the meter squeezed into the shot, also got it flipped around backwards, so we'll be reading it from the right to the left. So I've got the bulb that's working on, so let's take a look at it. We got a voltage there of about 9 volts. We'll switch to the one that don't work. 10.3, I guess, is about the unloaded voltage. So I keep in stock 6, 8, and 12. I think 12 might be a little too dim, and 8 might be too bright. I'm not so sure. We're going to have to take a look and see what we have and see what might work best. 8 would probably work fine. It'd be a little brighter, but it'd probably fail faster than a 12-volt bulb would. So we'll take a look at that and see. But let me zoom you out here. There's kind of another thing that's a little concerning. Let's move the meter out of the way. I'm going to turn the radio off. There we go. Taking a look at this, it looks like this glass piece or plastic piece goes all the way over to the LCD assembly, and the LCD assembly sits on top of it, or at the very least it has it trapped in there. So I'm not sure if the LCD will need to be pulled to get this out. I wouldn't think so, but I'm not seeing any other way. It's kind of got snaps at the top here, and you can see it runs all the way across the whole piece. And there is a circuit board behind with the switches on it. So I'm not sure if that circuit board could be removed via these connections here and everything come out the back way. So I'm not real sure. Let me look into this a little bit further, and I'll bring you back and we'll see what our best approach is. We could pull the LCD easy enough, but I don't want to if I don't have to do that. We'll try to take the easy way out, but we'll take the couple of screws out and I'll kind of get it loosened up and see which way we need to go. So once we get down to where the bulbs are at, then we can stick an 8 or 12 in there and see which one looks closest. I'm not sure which bulb we'll ultimately use, or maybe we can source a different one. 10-volt bulb, I don't know, that might be a hard ask, but before we can do anything with these, we got to get down to where they're at. We ain't even going to be able to get this bulb out of here without removing this, or at least I don't see a way to do it. So let me work on that a little bit, and then we'll pick back up. All right, let me go ahead and get you back in here. Fast forwarding down the road about 3 weeks since the last clip was made. Clearly trying to make a career out of this guy's radio. But we had a couple of delays in the attempt to properly identify what bulb they used here. Of course, we know the unloaded voltage is around 10 volts, but a 12 volt bulb is just a little too dim in my opinion. The 8 volt bulb looks okay. It's a little brighter than the one that's in there. But we thought maybe if we could get a hold of a service manual, it might actually give us the actual voltage of the bulb that they used. So Daniel tracked a manual down for this radio and sent me scans of it. Absolutely nothing but just the standard Panasonic part number for this radio for the bulb. So that didn't really help us at all. And then he actually located some 10 volt bulbs and ordered those up. And when he got them, they were way too big. They would not have worked in the radio, even though I think the seller indicated that the millimeter size of these would have worked. So kind of struck out twice there. I think on the last clip, we talked about removing the LCD panel from this in order to get access to remove this back piece, which will give us access to the lamps here. You do have to remove the LCD. That's the only way that I could see you can get this out, which was no big deal. I went ahead and got that out and got it down to the point now to where I went ahead and removed the bad bulb. So I think what we're gonna do first, I'll get you set up and we're gonna compare the 12 volt and the 8 volt lamp. 8 is what I think I'm gonna go with here. It is a little brighter, probably will shorten the life, but the bulb does not get extremely warm, so it's not hot enough to melt the filter that you're gonna put on, the little rubber filter you're gonna put on there to change the color of the bulb. So I think we're gonna be okay there. So let me go ahead and get you set up, and then we're gonna get started on this guy and see if we can get it finished up today. All right, so as I get you back in here and we're taking a look at this radio, I went ahead and soldered up a 12 volt bulb so you can get a look at that. This one that we're showing right now is the one that I soldered up. We'll take a look at the actual bulb from the factory, which is in the back. Definitely a lot brighter. Noticeable difference between the two of them. Now, the bulb from the factory is just a tiny bit bigger as well, but even if this bulb was that big, I'm not so sure it would be much brighter than the one that is in there now. So that's kind of my hesitation for using the 12 volt, because I think that it would be just a little dim to try to illuminate that panel and illuminate all those buttons, whereas the one that's from the factory clearly just looks a bit more bright to me. So give me a second here. I'll pause the clip. I'll unsolder this one and we'll put in an 8 and let you see that. All right, as I carry on with you here, I went ahead and got an 8 volt bulb soldered in, and we're gonna compare that to the 12 volt that we soldered up just a moment ago. The factory bulb is lit right now. If I switch it to the 8, it does jump up a little bit there, and quite a bit of difference between this one and the 12 volt bulb. So I think of the two, this would be the safe bet as far as not only lighting up the LCD portion over here, but also lighting up the buttons over on the right hand side, plus the backlit portion of the trim plate. I just don't see that being, happening with that 12 volt bulb in there. So yeah, it is a little brighter, but strangely enough, it does not get hot to the touch. You can easily put your fingers on it. So I don't see it burning up that filter that we're going to put on there to change the color. So I'm thinking that this is probably the route we want to go. So the trade-off is much limited lifespan on the bulb because it's not the proper voltage. And who knows, maybe the voltage for the factory bulb is 10 volts, maybe it's 9.5, I don't know. But I do know this, there could be some potential where you could use some type of an LED, modified LED to work here, but that's just not something I'm ever a big fan of. If we can get an incandescent bulb to work, I always want to put one back in one of these old radios. I just think it looks a lot nicer. So I think I'm going to go ahead and, of course we're going to replace them both because we want them both to match. So I'm going to change the other one, the factory one, to this 8-volt. We'll put the filters back on, and then we'll slip the nose piece on and take a look at what the buttons look like. If we can get them in there. I don't know if I can get them in. I may have to put the whole thing back together. I believe I actually do have to do that. I think you have to get the buttons, you have to put the buttons in this and then put this back on the unit in order to install the nose piece. So I think I'll just go ahead and do that. I'll put those back together, but we're definitely at a point here where can't spend any more time on these lamps and kind of obsessing with these. Going to have to make a decision and move forward with the repair. But yeah, the bulb itself is not running hot at all, so I think we're going to go with this. All right, let's go ahead and we'll take a quick look of everything reassembled here. And what I can tell you is it had been a few weeks since I took this apart, but the proper way to put this back together is you have to desolder the LCD panel and the button circuit board behind this plastic piece right here. So it all comes out as one assembly. But when I put it back together to test it and try the different bulbs, I didn't solder back in the LCD. I didn't want to have to do that any more times than necessary. So I left it out because we don't need it in there in order to switch between the two bulbs. So when I got ready to put it back together, I was like, well, how did I do this? I don't remember how I did it, but I took it all out as one assembly, unsoldered everything under the bottom of the radio. And we'll take a look here. So you're basically going to be unsoldering these connections on this circuit board. And then there's a couple of ground connections here as well. And then of course everything on the LCD. And there's a couple of screws you'll take out. And then the whole thing will just lift out. Of course you'll want to do that carefully. So now that I've got all this back together, you can see all the buttons are illuminated really nicely here, including the LCD panel. We switch to green, it's the same process. Again, I've had this on for probably about a half an hour. Nothing is getting warm that I can tell. I'm sure there's some heat being generated, but nothing too serious, I don't believe. And I think we'll have a better shot of getting the side here to illuminate that back panel than we would have with the 12-volt bulbs. The 12-volt bulbs, I don't even think would have lit this up very well. So I think what I want to do is we're going to take the cassette out and look at the belt. That really is the only thing we need to do here. But let me mock it up. We'll put the nose piece back on and the trim plate and see what it looks like in a dark room here. All right, as I bring you back in here, I got all the lights turned off in the room. And we can see how nicely it illuminates everything from the LCD display throughout all the buttons on the front of the radio. But on this on this trim plate, you can see it there in the green. It's really dim on this side. It's not quite as bright. But when I switch to the other color, it lights up really, really nicely. So it could be the bulb placement because they have one bulb closer to the channel that filters the light over to this side. The orange bulb is a little closer sitting in the back than the green bulb is. Could also be that green is just a little darker. It's not as bright as orange is. And so over the years, the plastic filters that they have built into the back of this, let's see if we can pull it off and take a look. Could be that that has kind of discolored some, and so it's not as bright as it used to be. That would certainly explain it too. But otherwise, this looks really, really nice. All lit up in green or orange, whichever your dash color might be. So yeah, I think this is good. We're going to leave this alone and we're going to move on to the tape deck. All right, picking back up, I went ahead and got our cassette mechanism out of the unit, and getting it out is not much easier than replacing the bulbs in this thing. you got to take quite a few screws out of this bottom plate. There's only 4 holding the whole thing into the radio, but you got to take quite a few and unmount a few wires here. So taking a look at it, the first thing I noticed is the belt was in really good shape. I cannot imagine this being the original one from the factory. It must have been changed at some point. So on the belt, all I did was just recondition it with some of the rubber renew. And the pressure rollers, I cleaned up the cap stands and did the pressure rollers. They look pretty good for the age. And it looks to me like kind of getting a bottom view of this cam gear here, which looks to be the one that may be responsible for ejecting the tape out, I think. But if we take a look at this mechanism here, this is from an old Kenwood. There's some stark similarities here. The real drive assembly is exactly the same. The motor assembly gearing is exactly the same. Even the cap stands position of the belt pulley is the same. So yeah, they must have taken themselves a Kenwood mechanism, or Kenwood got it from them, I'm not sure, and kind of modified it. But yeah, it's pretty much the same deal on a lot of parts. Only some add-ons because of the fact that the Technics here is full logic. So yeah. But otherwise, everything does look to be in real nice shape for the age of the radio. I mean, there's no real rust or anything that I've seen. All the lubrication is nice, still good on it from what I can tell. So I don't think we're going to mess around with this. We'll just put it back together and we're going to move on to getting the EQ hooked up and see what that sounds like. So I'm going to take a minute or two and put this back together, and then we'll continue on. All right, as we come back in here, went ahead and got the radio reassembled. Everything's looking real nice here. Got a second power supply involved for the amplifier. The EQ is powered off the radio, so we don't need any additional power for that, but we will need some for this amplifier. He has 2 of these. Both of them work exactly the same way. So for the sake of the demonstration, we'll just be doing the one amplifier, which is backlit. You'll notice the EQ and the amplifier both have an orange color to them, which is not selectable through the radio. The amplifier has 1 lamp in it. It is only orange, and the EQ, of course, every one of the sliders has an LED built into the slider. We'll pull the tab off there, and you can see that on the side there. So unfortunately, not selectable illumination on the EQ, but that's okay. This EQ is probably used across a variety of systems, not just this particular radio. So as everything turns out very nicely on this radio, it is one of the coolest shaft style radios I've worked on. I love the full logic controls of this. I love the fact that it has that kind of backlit trim plate on it. So many cool things about this stereo. So I think we're going to go ahead and set this up, and we're going to do a final play test on this one and wrap it up. All right, let's go ahead and take one final look at this super cool Technics CQ-R720EU. As always, I want to thank you guys very much. Appreciate you checking out the video this time, as well as all the videos on the channel. And thanks to Daniel for sending this one to me. And nice shaft style radio, full logic tape deck in it. Looks very nice, matched up with this EQ and slim line amplifier. One other thing, he did tell me the EU at the end of the model number is very commonly used, so it's not a European thing as I was originally thinking. Another thing, if you have one of these and you need to change the lamp, it is definitely doable, but you will have to take out that LCD assembly and the button panel. You can unsolder the lamps, you can get to the connections to unsolder them, but you'll never be able to remove them without taking those things out. So they didn't make it extremely easy in this particular radio. So anyway, I think we did a pretty good job on this. The lights look really nice. Hopefully they will stand the test of time. And it would have been nice to be able to get the OEM ones to go in there, but of course that is not possible decades down the road from the time that this one was made. So on our way out of this video, I decided to make us a little something. Recorded us something on this vintage TDK chrome tape. And the music we were using in this video was George Lynch, Lynch Mob. And of course, George, a former member of Dokken, founding member of the band. And it seems like even though George is not a member of the band anymore, when him and Don get together, they always seem to do Kiss of Death. And it is an incredibly scorching song with George on guitar. So let's go ahead and do that one on the way out. And again, I want to thank you guys very much. I do appreciate you checking out the videos. Let's check out a little bit of this.